Karen opened her mouth. I was like, oh my God, don't pass me. Yeah, it is kind of an odd thing. Yeah, it's an interesting, you know.
Ladies and gentlemen, the family's been seated. There are a few extra chairs. Please don't be bashful and come forward and have a seat. And if I can also remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones for the service.
Psalm 121, we read, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, and your protector will not slumber. The protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever.
Reign of Elohim Otenu, our God and God of all generations. Thou who governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy, and who guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent, have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore, we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us. But with humility and unfaltering trust, we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike, we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow, our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight. When the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquil mind, as Carmen is. To thee we look for comfort and strength. When one of our beloved is taken from us, and a link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil, for you are with us. Praised, O eternal our God, in all your dispensations. Sanctified be your name, now and forevermore. Let us all say together. I'd like now to call upon Carol and then Kim to share some words.
My mother was a person who cared for others. My first memory of my mother is of her brushing my hair into pigtails and then brushing it around her finger to make one big curl. I remember her turning on the oven on cold winter days so we could bring our clothes down and dress in front of the open oven. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the same house Mom did, go to the same elementary school she did, and have the same teachers she did. That is how I learned she was a fun-loving child. Her teachers told me she was the class clown and shared some of her funny actions with me. I'd go home and ask Mom, "Weren't you embarrassed?" She told me she used to run home and take the phone off the hook so her teachers couldn't call her mother about her shenanigans. She said, "I don't know how I raised such serious children." Her most famous story was of a teacher who had a relative in every country they studied. Finally, they got to Abyssinia, and lo and behold, the teacher did not have a relative. Mom immediately announced that her uncle was the king of Abyssinia. Of course, that made the yearbook. Mom also loved history. She enjoyed historical novels. When we drove from Denver to Disneyland, she had to stop and read every historical marker. In addition, Mom loved music and loved to dance. As a little girl, she took tap lessons and even danced on the stage of the Orpheum Theater. I remember growing up that she had a vinyl record player in the kitchen for 78 RPM records and played show tunes as we washed the dishes. She taught us to tap dance to East Side, West Side on our kitchen floor. My mom didn't learn to cook until after she married, but that was no obstacle. And with the aid of the joy of cooking, was soon at home in the kitchen. Over the decades, we've come to love her pie crust cookies, hearty stews, and brisket. Every Sunday night, Mom and Aunt Mill would get together with their families for Sunday night dinner. Mom would say, "You can always count on dinner with the family on Sundays." When I went away to college, I'd call on Sundays, and Mom would pass the phone around the dinner table. Mom was loved by her friends, family, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren.
So growing up, Mom was my advisor, my counselor, and I always appreciated her common sense advice. But I will follow up on a little bit of what Carol talked about, the shenanigans business. When she was, I remember her actually very, very vividly in the kitchen, always singing show tunes from all the musicals and hearing every one of them. But it wasn't just she was singing. She was dancing in the kitchen, and she was, I mean, the full dance with the arms and the head and the whole business, and looking us in the eye. And you could just feel the emotion in all the songs as she sang them. And as a result, all of us, I think, end up singing show tunes periodically when we're doing whatever we would like, but we enjoy it. An interesting thing last Saturday was that I had a need to, because of Mom's impending demise, I thought, you know, I'm gonna watch The King and I. And we put on The King and I, and I was in tears listening to all the songs, but it was partly her impending loss, but also the fact that she had driven the emotional content of this music into us. And that's what I was feeling. And so I've always appreciated that. I think she was the showbiz wannabe, and she really entertained us when we were growing up in that regard. Finally, I would like to say that one of the things that I've really appreciated in her was her grace. She always thought about other people. She was very polite all the time. And the important thing about that was her sincerity with all of that. It wasn't put on. And this became exemplified later as her Alzheimer's picked up, in that she still continued to be thankful to all the caregivers that were taking care of her. She was always very polite. One of my last conversations about 5 years ago with her, we were at a family event, and we were talking, and I was saying a few things, and she was nodding and smiling the way she does. And when it hit me was when she gave me a quizzical look and said, "And how long have I known you?" So, but in all of that, she always maintained that graciousness, and I've always appreciated that in her. And Lord knows, I wish I'd have picked up more of that.
Well, if I had known about the love of show tunes, I might have come prepared with something a little bit different today. But that is food for thought for later. Then actually the piece I'm going to sing very briefly right now is a piece that was written a little bit later. It's called Eli, Eli, which is an Israeli piece of music. And I felt it was so appropriate for Carmen in particular, because it talks about the eternity of beauty in this world and how we feel that so deeply. And it is clear from her longevity and from what she has left us with that is really her legacy, that there was such a beauty about her that she has passed on to her children and to her whole community. And so this represents that quality. Eli, Eli, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ברק השמיים, תפילת האדם. Oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of The crash of the heavy, the prayer of the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the
Poet has written, birth is a beginning and death is a destination. Life itself is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage. From childhood to maturity and from youth to age. From innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing. From foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength, or from strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love. From joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion. From grief to understanding, and from fear to faith. From defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, death is a destination. Life itself is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life that is everlasting. Now I'd like to call upon Peggy and then Nancy, Judge.
When I think of my mother, I think of her sitting in a chair in the den at 423 Eudora, knitting a sweater, needle pointing, wall hanging, or crocheting a blanket. Mom crocheted a baby blanket for each of the firstborn babies of her own children. Mom loved to sew too. The summer before my 8th grade, Mom knew that there would be a sewing class in home economics in junior high. So she signed her and me up for a sewing class at Emily Griffith in the summer, so I would be prepared for the class. We had a great time together. When Mom was still living at 423 Eudora, she would get her hair done every Saturday at the salon. When it snowed, she didn't want to drive, so she would call my husband Merrill to drive her to the appointment. Well, this began to be a weekly excursion for the two of them. Even after she moved to independent living and some years in assisted living, Merrill would always take Mom to lunch after her hair appointment. Mom loved hot dogs, so they would go to Johnny Rockets for her weekly hot dog. They were such regulars that the waitress, when she saw them come in, knew what they wanted, and she served them before they even sat down. Then Merrill would take Mom to get a bunch of fresh yellow flowers for her vase because she loved the yellow flowers. Mom was also so gracious and such a perfect hostess, just as Ken said. My friends loved her so much that at my 40th high school reunion, several of them asked if they could come visit Mom. They exchanged many neighborhood stories, and of course, she served them iced tea and cookies. I will miss Mom so much. She will live on in our memories.
So I'm going to share some more memories about Mom, but first, I think she would be beside herself if I did not say thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Rabbi and Cantor, and she wishes you all love and good health to you and Joyce. And thank you for all those who could not be here in person, but remotely. So Mom, I thanked everyone, right? So you heard a bit about Mom loving to dance, and she certainly did. And what I knew as a little kid, she would tell stories about how she was also a tomboy, and she would play with the little boys on the block on Franklin Street and climb trees with them. And she just was always active. And I think she played tennis a little bit then. So when I came along a lot later, and it was my turn to take tennis lessons at Green Gables, I was taking lessons with Larry Loeb. And so she gets Erwin Hoffman. She goes, well, I want to take lessons too. So not only did Mom take lessons, she ends up on the senior tournament circuit. And people will remember her playing tennis, wearing her little Miss Muffet hat, her little tennis hat, and her short skirts. And so she also continued on with Pilates when she couldn't play tennis anymore. So she played tennis well into her late 80s. And then it got a little bit tough. Not that she couldn't run around the court, but I think she got arthritis in her thumb or something and couldn't hold the racket anymore. But then she took up Pilates, and she did Pilates well into her early 90s and was the star of the class. So Mom just couldn't help herself but be active and enjoy the world. She traveled with Mill and Sid all over the world. And Mill was just telling me how they went to France. And Mom was deathly afraid of heights. And they get to the Eiffel Tower. And Mom kept saying, I can't believe I'm here. It's the Eiffel Tower. And Mill's like, well, let's go on up. And, you know, Mom's afraid of heights. But Mom didn't let any obstacles stand in her way. And somehow with Mill's nudging, she made it to the very top of the Eiffel Tower. So Mom just loved life fully, experienced it. And as you all know, was just always full of love and grace, as we all say. And she made all of as kids, all of our friends feel so welcome, whether it was Schweter Camp kids staying in between sessions, our school friends, our work colleagues. She was always there for everyone. And one of her last times in the kitchen of cooking up stuff, I know was she made this big vat of really hearty, yummy soup for one of my colleagues on the court who had gotten sick. And that's just who Mom was. She was just there for other people and put other people before her. And I just have to say that Mom and I always told each other that we are so lucky to have each other. So Mom, I'm so lucky to have you, and we're all so lucky that we got to have you too.
There is no piece of literature anywhere that is used more often in moments like this than the words of the 23rd Psalm. And before we call upon the cantor to chant that beautiful psalm, I just want to say a word about King David and what he really meant. You know, we use it because it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And even when I say that now, whenever I say that, people go, yes, they know that. But that's not what King David meant. King David, really, if he was the one who wrote the psalm, we're not 100% sure. I mean, as a liberal rabbi, I'm not sure. As an Orthodox rabbi here, he would tell you definitely, but I'm not, I don't know who wrote it. But whoever the author was, he was trying to give advice to mourners. And the advice that he was trying to give to the mourners was the fact that he wanted you to walk through the valley of the shadow of death and not to get stuck in the middle, which is so often what happens with families. They focus on death and not on the life of that person. And so I say to you, as we listen to the cantor and then we'll say the words together, I say to you, don't get stuck in that valley, but appreciate every moment that you will remember about life.
Adonai Elohim lo echsar binot eshet yarvitzeini al mei menuchot al mei menuchot nafshi yeshove, yeshove, yancheini v'maglei tzedek, yancheini v'maglei tzedek, leman shemo. Gam kelach begit lo ira Yataimadi Shitacha Umishatecha Hema Yanachamuni Ha'aroch Lefanai Lefanai Shulchan Again Sovereign Dishanta Vashem Enoshi Kosi Hevaya Ach tov v'chesed yirefuni kol yamei chayai, kol yamei chayai, v'shavti bevei Adonai. Adonai lo
Join me if you remember the words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God. Beloved family, dear friends, first our sincerest gratitude to all four of you for sharing so intimately these wonderful, wonderful memories that some of us will remember parts of, but you will remember them with such intensity because of the kind of person she was. I want you also to recognize that there are many of us who feel like we are also mourners. I feel that way. I mean, I have known your mother since the day I came to Denver, nearly 52 years ago. And I'll say in a few moments a little thing about your mom and your dad in Schrader Camp, because I think it's important. But she made an impact upon us. And Joyce also expresses her best to all of you and her condolences to all of you. And to you, Millie, and Bonnie's family, because she was so much a part of Carmen's life as well. We can only hope and pray that this day will help you to walk through that valley, because that's what this day is about. I recognize that when a person lives to 103, it's a long time. She saw the best and the worst in human life. And she was the best. Not that she was the best and the worst. I don't mean it that way at all. She saw the best and really tried to do the best. And all of the things that you have shared with us help us to understand not what she did, but who she was. I really do believe that this is true. We do what we do because of the kinds of people we are. It's not the other way around. We don't do what we do and then we get judged by being that. We do what we do as human beings because of that inner strength, because of all of those wonderful things that you said about your mom, because they were all so very true. This is also a moment of bittersweetness, as I have said to all of you. Bittersweetness, why bitter? Because she's gone. And in some ways, you probably said, I can't believe that. On the other hand, you also said to yourselves, I'm grateful. Grateful that whatever suffering there was for her is over. She was a very special, special person. We learn from a moment like this that time itself is sacred. No matter how many years God grants to us, it is sacred time. And our purpose today is to remember who she was, how she has impacted others. We all have that love for her. This is also a time to remember that you have certain tasks to perform today. And I know that you all said, well, we can be strong. To be strong in a moment like this is to recognize that you can also grieve and mourn for your loss. There's a strength in doing that. And it's an important strength. So your first task truly is to grieve for this loss. Second one is to wonder with amazement, not only at the beauty of birth, but of the mystery of death. No matter what happens, we don't know what will happen to us when we die. I know that we all have different points of view and they're all correct if they help us. So I hope that you will wonder about the mystery of what may or may not happen at this moment. Third task is to remember, even when tomorrow or next week or next month or even next year, you remember something about her that you had forgotten. Share it. Share it, because it will keep some of who she was alive. And lastly, and I believe this above all, I believe that your task as children is to pass on to the next generation and certainly to yourselves the idea that you need to emulate who she was to keep those wonderful, wonderful values alive. Values of giving, graciousness, hospitality, friendship, of understanding that others come first and not yourself, of independence. I loved the story you told me yesterday when we started to speak about your mom. And we had this debate about whether she had Alzheimer's or dementia. And I don't know. Even Ken will tell you, he doesn't know. She may have had both. Who knows? I don't know. But what I loved about this is the fact that when she went to Mountain View, it was because of her independence, she said, I'm ready. Whether she understood that at the time or not, she was independent and understood that she needed some help. And I think that was a great part of who her life, what her life was. She was that person who kept young, tried to do those things that would keep her body moving and her mind alert. Temple was a part of her life forever. I also remember your grandma, Lizzie, We're going to talk about memories. We're going to talk about somebody who really shook the world up. She did. Joyce and I were talking this morning about her. Joyce said, I never called her Lizzie. I said, I always did, because that's what she asked me to do. But I remember her so well. She was a special person. I also want to share a word that I've been thinking about since yesterday. You all said to me that Schrader Camp meant so much. And I said to you, your dad had a lot to do with that. And I know that he did. But in thinking about where Schrader Camp is today, it wasn't just your dad and a couple of others who saw the goodness that Schrader Camp could bring and the vision that Schrader Camp could share for the next generation, because it was such a highlight of the temple. It was people like your mom who pushed those guys, and it was only guys at the time, I know that. It was guys and Amy Strauss. She was one who pushed your dad to say, this is a good thing to do. If she didn't want to do it or see it done, she would have told him it. And he would, as a good husband, he would have said, yes, my darling. But she was there. And so the legacy that all of us have enjoyed with Schrader Camp is do as much to your mother's good work as your father's. And we shall always be grateful for that. And the next generations will be grateful for that. Because there's a feeling, there's a heart about what Schrader Camp is. And so to you as her beloved family, we who are here not family, all we can do is express our condolences, our love for her as well, and hope and pray that you all will find your life improved as you continue to remember her, as you continue to remember who she was in her highest moments of living. Remember the love of her life, who's your dad, and the love of his life, who's your mom. They had a special relationship. If your dad wasn't gone, they would have been married 80 years. It's a long time. And in some ways, that influence has been a part of her life for 80 years. And so we hope that all of those memories will be a source of strength to you. To you, Melly, because she was your sister and you love her in this very special way. And you shared all of those childhood memories. We hope and we pray that you will find strength. To all of the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, help keep her alive by sharing those memories and helping them to understand who she was. Perhaps these words from the poet will be helpful. The poet wrote, when you remember me, it means that you have carried something of who I am with you, that I have left some mark of who I am on who you are. It means you can summon me back to your mind, even when I'm gone. You can still see my face and hear my voice, and speak to me in your heart. As long as you remember me, I'm not entirely gone. And I believe that that's true, and that is the way we give immortality to those that we love. It is in that spirit then that we resolve to face our grief without self-pity, but with bravery and integrity, keeping before us forever the blessings that God conferred upon us in this life that he but lent to us for these many decades. And in a world where our most precious goods are perishable, let us resolve to honor our beloved dead by being so good to the living, so kindly, so understanding, so forgiving, so transcendent to pettiness, that in our love for her we shall hearken to those who remain and who need us in their strength. May it be through new relationships and new service to humanity that we make good our loss. And in the beauty of our own lives, erect the noblest monument to our mourned dead. Thus the beauty of her life will ever abide among us all as a living and loving benediction. Unai Natan Baranai Lakach. Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach Me'atavi Adonai. God has given. God has taken away. Praise be the name of God, now and forevermore. And let us all say together. Amen. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the blueness of the sky and in the heat of the summer, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. We are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember her. When we have achievements based on hers, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live. She now is a part of us. We will remember her. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar etchem b'tzamo v'zan chinkel etchem b'tuvo, v'himit etchem b'din v'netah b'tokechem chai olam. Baruch atah Adonai, dayan ha'emet. We praise you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in the divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, causing all of us to die and planting immortal life within us. We praise you, O God, the judge of truth. Tagi bor le'olam Adonai Rav ve'Hoshia, Mechalkel chaim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol b'rachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim u'matir asalim, U'mekayim emunato l'shenei afar, Mi chamocha v'al givorot u'videm elach, Melech ve'emit u'mechayei u'matzmiach Yeshua, U'atah Adonai, Noter petachim v'chayei olam. Eternal is your might, O God, all life is your gift. Great is your power to save. With love you sustain the living, with great compassion you give life to all. Send help to the fallen, healing to the sick. Bring freedom to the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. Praise you, O God, who plants eternal life within us. You need one more, Jim. So, stand up for a minute, stay seated. Children want parents people shouldn't happen, but it does. Children, parents want to joy, and spouses want to joy. Symbol of mourning. If we would put this ribbon on it, symbolize the baby. Would you also with me, Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Ha'emet. Praised are you, O Lord our God. Praised are you, O Lord our God. You who art the righteous judge. You who are the righteous judge. What you do? What you tear them up? Don't tear it off. Tear it up. That's good. Perfect. 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 It's a symbol of faith. Far out, far touch far. Yes, thou art, and into dust thou shalt return. Chomer art, vel chomer touch far. Clay thou art, and unto the clay of the earth thou shalt return. Ruach art, vel ruach Elohim touch far. Spirit art thou, and into the Spirit of God commit your soul this day. Yeah, when we finish. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the Spirit which we have laid within the bosom of the earth. The Spirit itself cannot die. For here too our dear ones continue in the loving remembrance of those to whom they were precious. See the mercy of God, the soul of our beloved Carmen Lichtenstein. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, no mind has compassed it, still it is our sure inheritance, our everlasting portion, now and forevermore. So I would ask you now, dear family and dear friends, to rise that we might recite together the words that have been hallowed by centuries of faith, the words that have been glorified in our tradition, the words of the Kaddish prayer. Yit kadal v'yit kadash shemei rabba, yamod yitvach hilutei, yamlich malchutei, chaye chon v'yomech, chaye v'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv, v'yimaru amen, yehei shemei rabba mivorach, le'olam u'le'olmei olmaya, yit barach v'yit shtabach, v'yit pa'ar v'yit ramam v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar v'yit halev v'yit halav, shemei dekudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'yemar amen. V'hei shalom araba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yemar amen. V'seh shalom v'naman, v'ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yemar amen.
Malay Rachamim, Shochem Amrami, Hamsai Menuchon Nechona, Tachakon Ashchina. Im kedoshim adorim. Kezorakia. Masih. Shalom, Hamishkava, Amen.
O God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, find perfect rest in your sheltering presence. Carmen Lichtenstein has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou her possession. Repose. Peace. Parted whom we now remember has been called unto the peace of life eternal. She shall still live on earth in the acts of goodness she has performed, in the hearts of those who will ever cherish her memory. We pray that the beauty of her life will ever abide among us all as a living, loving benediction. Be the source of peace. Send peace unto all you who mourn. May God comfort all the bereaved among us, among Israel, among all the nations and the families of earth. And let us all say together. Amen. Adonai, go your way. God has called you. Lech Adonai Yirma, go your way, and may God be with you. Lach v'panecha tzidkecha kavod Adonai asveta. May your righteousness go before you. May the glory of God receive you. Let's all say together. I know that the family wants to put some dirt into the grave, so please allow them to do that. This does conclude our service.